So let's get into the conversation proper as we attempt to answer the question, is binge watching bad for your mental health?
It is honest. Well, I think at the end of the day, it's how you consume binge watching, right? If you go ahead and spend 7 days of the week watching TV, then you have a problem. And for me personally, why I started binge watching shows is that it helps me fall asleep a little bit better.
What?
Yes, white noise, some form of noise, especially TV noise, to me makes me a little bit sleepy. Sometimes if I'm not really interested in the storyline, I'll doze off after a couple episodes.
So where's your TV?
My TV is in my living room.
Okay.
So I often will fall asleep in my living room. I think after a while, especially during this MCO, I've realized should not put a TV inside the room because again, it doesn't really help me sleep in some sense.
Right.
Yeah, better in the living room because I don't know, it's just a more relaxed setting. I don't know.
So I think it's a bunch of issues that we're going to try and combine into one conversation. We have, of course, someone to help answer these questions. She's ANITA BAKAR, President of the Mental Illness Awareness and Support Association. Miasa, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So straight off the bat, is binge watching bad for your mental health?
I think Zoe said it well. It really depends on how you consume it, but excessive binge watching is definitely not good for your health. Because when we talk about anything that we binge on, it means everything in excess. So when we're talking about watching, it means many hours of watching many episodes. Like Zoe, you were talking about K-drama.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people watch K-drama many episodes, and then it disturbs your sleep pattern, and then you get insomnia, and then there's a lot of fatigue, and then it affects your mood. So all in all, there's a lot of harm in binge watching in itself, definitely.
So I've noticed a different series, they carry different sort of emotional hooks that either force you to binge watch, so you get the answers to the questions you want, and there are series that I find have no real emotional hooks that way. I don't know whether people share my opinion on this, but I think The Witcher is pretty much emotional hookless. You can watch one episode at a time, and you're fine,
You're fine, okay. To take the breaks in between, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's also a lot of different, episodes of whatever shows that you're currently watching, where when the narrative gets really slow, that's when you get your trigger where, okay, maybe I should, stop now and then wait for, maybe the sensational cliffhangers later on, that kind of thing. So that can also help. So that can give you that, trigger where I need to stop now. Maybe I can do other things. Because if not, when you have all these hooks, then it's very difficult for you to stop, because there's that addictive component to actually watching, especially if it's your favorite
show, right?
So would you say things were done right in the 80s where they had commercial breaks?
Exactly.
That's what commercial breaks were meant for, right?
Then you realize, okay, I need to go to the bathroom right now.
Your break and then intermission. But I actually want to define what is excessive binge watching. For example, I'm a person who has a 9-to-5 job, and the only time I have free time is the weekend. So I purposely spend the weekend to watch, let's say, to catch up on Big Bang, catch up on my favorite TV show, whatever. Is that considered excessive binge watching?
Okay, it shouldn't disrupt your daily routine, right? So when you have, our weekend schedule should differ from our weekday schedule because you've got work involved. But during the weekends, have a routine where you've got your meal time, stick to that. You've got your exercise routine, stick to that. And then everything else, your TV can come in between. So that is how you control and manage that. But anything in excess, that would be considered binging, definitely.
So for example, like I dedicate every single night in my time 2 hours to watch TV for 7 days in a row. Would that also be considered binge watching?
That's a lot. That's definitely a lot. Yeah.
I think a good alarm clock might help, like just go off in the middle of your session and okay, it's time. I got to turn off the device and get to bed. But how would you watch normal circumstance? How would you watch something like, the Justice League, the Snyder Cut? I mean, that's a 4-hour long experience. And producers of movies like that, I mean, I don't think they make it for you to binge watch, but because of the sheer excess of time it takes to consume the entirety of that mammoth production, you're going to have to.
Right, but you don't watch that every single day. You watch that once a month, probably. We don't go to cinemas every single day. We probably go, I don't know, once a week, twice a week, twice a month, that kind of stuff. So that's entirely fine.
Mm.
Because you need that. You need time out. You need that escapism. Maybe it's a coping mechanism. You need to relax. It's really good, but not when you do it excessively. So the word is always in excess or excessive, or when it disrupts your daily routine. Because you see, when exhaustion comes in or fatigue, when it disturbs your sleep pattern, when it affects your mood, it can lead to mental health issues. And this is not a place where we want to be at. Okay, especially for children, because a lot of children are binge watching today, and the pandemic hasn't helped. Obviously,
Nope.
The isolation. We've been in lockdown for so long. Parents need to work. Who takes care of the kids? So a lot of times, parents do rely on television, on social media, on YouTube, for kids to have something else to do in that sense. Yeah.
What's actually the attractive appeal of binge watching? Why do we do, even though we know it's bad,
why do we do
disrupts our sleep?
Right.
Even right now, I'm like, barely staying awake. Like, for example, having watched 20 hours worth of a series.
Right.
But why do I keep doing it, even though I know it's bad, disrupting my sleep? I have work the next morning. What's the appeal to it?
Yeah, because there's a lack of self-regulation. We're not able to self-regulate. That's one. And of course, because of the addictive component of entertainment, we all know this. Like you said, when you watch Justice League, you're just, on that screen, right? It's difficult for you to move. So I think it's very important in anything that we do, we've got to be mindful.
Yeah.
Not necessarily just watching, TV, but, even in eating, you find a lot of comfort in eating your favorite food. You keep on eating, it tastes really good. So what keeps you from not continuing or taking that next hamburger or that next fries is that self-regulation, is being mindful. It's bad for health. You're not supposed to consume fast food, every single day, that kind of thing. So anything in excess is definitely bad.
What about
how is it different from reading?
From
reading?
Reading, okay.
Watching or consuming content through the screen. How is that different from reading? Because you also can get addicted to reading.
I think it really depends, because a lot of times we are more visual, and when we're more visual, we get stuck easier. When it's reading, there's just words, right? And a lot of people, when you're reading, you're not really seeing that, you're not really visualizing yourself in it. There's not really something that can keep you hooked onto it. So it's a little bit different than watching.
Speaking of which, is it something that's also psychological, or is it more, the chemical reaction in our brain that we get attached to a certain character? Because more often, or even dramas that you are on RTM, daily dramas and all that, certain people get addicted to, or they get attached to the characters, right? So does that also help encourage binge watching?
Oh, definitely, because sometimes when you watch it, there's certain fantasies maybe you get hooked on, because maybe it's something that you can relate to, or something that you want, it's something that you crave for. There's a lot of fantasies again that you want it so much. So through that pleasure of watching, it gives you a lot of instant gratification, and which can be quite bad, to be honest. Yeah.
And so because everybody's doing it, everybody has a subscription-based
yes.
You're
content
to like Netflix, you're subscribing to,
Disney Plus.
Yes, Disney
Plus,
Plus,
YouTube. All these
Everybody's
things.
doing it. So
Exactly.
what is the state of mental health in Malaysia today?
Okay, we're looking at, in 2019, we're looking at the National Health and Morbidity Survey, 2.3% of the Malaysian population were having depression right now, are going through depression. We're looking at kids, about 424,000 children going through mental health issues. And this is not a small number, guys. This is a huge number. And we've got to do something about it. So one thing that we've got to understand and realize is getting a mental health disorder, as an example, needs or requires a lot of factors. You don't wake up in the morning and suddenly you've got anxiety or suddenly you've got depression. The pandemic definitely hasn't helped, because a lot of you're now seeing a lot of contributing factors. There's an increase in risk factors. So we're in a situation where many of us are susceptible, or even everyone is susceptible to a mental health disorder if we do not take care of our mental health. So we need to understand this, especially parents today, because kids are not going through an easy time right now. online classes, being cut off from, their social support system, which are their peers, their friends. It can equate to grief. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. So a lot of children are struggling. And parents have to play that role. They have to be that role model. And if we, associate that with screen time as an example, children learn by observation, right? They observe their parents. So if you're binge watching, they will definitely binge watch.
Yep.
So if you are able to limit your screen time, they will also follow that. So this is why as parents, you need to play that role. You have to be that guide. You have to lead, by example. You have to be exemplary. And that is why you're a parent.
Yeah.
That's a lot of responsibility right there in one episode.
I'm not a parent, but I have a little sister as well, and she's addicted to YouTube.
Exactly.
She can spend, like you said, easily 5 hours goes by.
That's so common.
Yeah, and sometimes we as adults, because we want that peace of quiet, we don't notice, the hours have gone by. So do you have any tips or any advice on, how to also be mindful of the amount of hours we spend on the screen, not only us, but also our children, our little sisters, little brothers?
Yeah, I think what is really important, what has helped me as well during these past 2 years, is having a routine. We've got to have a routine, guys. You don't have to be rigid in following that routine or that schedule, but it really helps to declutter what you have in here. It helps you to plan, to be more organized. And so even putting your screen time limit in there will really help. So I think this is so important. And then use binge watching as a reward, for example. Like you guys, you work so hard, for example, fresh brew, you're tired, you go home. Use that as a reward. Okay, this week I've accomplished this much. So now, I can, have that pleasure of watching 3 hours a day.
And I think a lot of people don't realize as well is that binge watching does promote, no, not in the way promote, but help stress, right? It comes out, especially when you are watching a series that you're so into it. And of course, the cliffhanger happens and immediately you get stressed out. Now, is that a real thing, or people don't realize that it's a real thing?
Okay, so there's a couple of scenarios, right? Okay, so if you are going through a lot of stress or you're feeling very depressed, usually when you binge watch, it's as a way to escapism or a coping mechanism. In contrary, if you have anxiety, for example, people that feel anxious, they find a lot of they feel relaxed when they binge watch. So during this pandemic, we're all anxious. We all feel a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of panicking. There's a lot of fear. So people that have these emotions, when they binge watch a lot more now, and they feel better. So it's kind of different. It really depends on the emotional state that you're in. And anxiety and depression are really two different things. Although usually we say they're siblings, because a lot of people with anxiety also have depression, or people with depression have anxiety 50% of the time. So that's how you kind of differentiate it.
So you've got to understand yourself before you tune into something that you like watching, because the emotional state you're in at that point in time matters to the outcome.
Right, exactly.
Emotional investment towards that series, that drama. Again, it's not that bad, but like you said, at the end of the day, it's how you consume the media, right?
Exactly. Because if you're depressed, right, and then you continue watching and watching it, you will feel more depressed. So for example, we talk a lot about, let's say, social media. A lot of people today, you do doom scroll, right? You scroll and scroll and scroll and you think it's fine. But after a while, you will realize you start feeling anxious. You start feeling that anxiety coming. I'm sure you guys have felt it if you've doom scrolled before. So it really depends again. Apa ni Zoe?
I try to tune off from everything. Like
Detox, right?
Detox. Like towards the end of 2021, I was like, okay, that's it. I'm not going to post. I'm not going to say anything. Just going to focus on the family and leave the social media part of life for next year.
And there are movies as well, when you reach that cliffhanger, depending on what happens, it can leave you with a feeling of numbness, or you feel satisfied, or you feel, I regretted watching that movie. So you see, there's different outcomes that can happen as well.
I think Hollywood knows this. That's why they made trilogies.
Exactly. I think at the end of the day, everything is they've done the research and all that.
Right.
But for our audiences who are at home, who have possibly been triggered, from binge watching, they need some form of help. They don't even realize that they have a problem who can they reach out to and how?
Okay, so for example, like Miyasa, we are, a mental health advocacy and peer group. So when we talk about peer group, we are people with lived experience. Majority of us are people with the condition, and the balance are caregivers and also mental health advocates, people that are passionate for the cause of mental health. So we've got our 24/7 crisis helpline, 1-800-8200-66. So anyone in crisis, if you're going through a mental health struggle, if you're going through mental health disorders, if you think you are going through a mental health struggle, you don't know what to do, who to call, please call us. And of course, we've got our COVID psychosocial support helpline by, MOH and also Mercy. There's also Befriend Us if you're going through any suicidal, thoughts or ideation at this moment, which it has increased a lot because of the pandemic. You can also reach out to Befriend Us, which is a 24/7 hotline as well.
All right. Thank you, ANITA, for coming on board. It's been a pleasure talking to you.